We're talking Joseph today, and just to get you some context, a lot of you know this, and some of you may not. So I just want to make sure we start on the same page. It's so important to understand, I think, the bigger picture of how this all works. And sometimes you got to hear this 10 times before you go, oh. I mean, at least that's how I am with stuff. And so maybe you've seen this before, or you've certainly heard it. If not, it's just kind of to lay some groundwork. Genesis chapter 12 starts the story really of Joseph, but it goes back to Abraham, back when he was called Abram. And it's in chapter 12, verses 1 through 3. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. And I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and to him who dishonors you I will curse, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." We have been blessed ultimately through the story of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and the children that came from him, ultimately leading to Jesus. It's interesting, and who knows, I don't know who was alive at the time, but out of all the people on the planet at this time, God handpicks this 75-year-old guy and his wife to start a new family. They hadn't had any children yet, but Abraham and Sarah says, "I want you guys, you're going to start a new nation. I'm going to bless the world through you. You're going to become a nation so big that people won't even be able to count the numbers. It's great things are going to happen through your ancestors." And Abraham and Sarah are looking at each other like, "What? You know, we're 75. We haven't had any children. What are you even talking about?" Well, if you're going to become a nation, you got to have kids, right? You got to start having children. So they go to work to start having children, and it's not happening. I mean, it hasn't happened yet, and it still isn't happening. And so finally, at some point, Sarah looks at her husband and says, "Hey, you know, we got this servant that hangs out with us. Her name's Hagar. Why don't you go ahead and have a child through her?" Maybe that's what God was thinking. And so Abraham and Hagar got together, and they have a son named Ishmael, who, by the way, is not the promised child. That is not who God was talking about. They took things in their own hand. They did it slightly differently, and that wasn't at all what God was trying to accomplish. Sorry, didn't work that way. 24 years after the original promise to Abraham is given that Sarah and Abraham finally have their own son. So this is 24 years of waiting, of thinking, did we hear that right? I mean, we're going to become a nation? Now they're in their 90s. I mean, it's like, what? It's 24 years later. Abraham and Sarah have a son. They name him Isaac. This is going to be the child who the promise will go through. At age 40, now we're going to start flipping ahead. At age 40, Isaac marries a woman named Rebekah. When he's 60, so they go 20 years without any kids. When he's 60, they have twins, Esau and Jacob. And the two boys are as different as night and day. Esau is kind of a man's man. He's a hunter. He's athletic. He's hairy. He walks around going, that's Esau. Jacob's kind of a mama's boy, and he likes quiet sunrises and poems and cooking with the Martha Stewart, and he's sensitive and he likes to stay at home. Now, for whatever reason, God chooses to pass the promise on through Jacob. So he will now be the promise, right? So Abraham, Isaac, Jacob is what you got going on here. Jacob grows up and he sees a very beautiful woman one day named Rachel, and he wants to marry her. So he makes an arrangement with her dad, who is a son of Ishmael. So you got the other half of the family tree kind of coming back in, right? He makes an arrangement with her dad that he'll work for her for 7 years, and then they'll get married. Well, time flies by. It's great. They're going to get married. Finally, the wedding night happens. The moment he's been waiting for. And the next morning, Jacob, he wakes up and he's going to have his first breakfast with his wife. It's going to be really great. And they didn't have electricity back then, so there weren't lights. All of a sudden he realizes, whoa, I just married her sister. He didn't even know it till the next day. So Rachel actually is Leah. That's an awkward conversation he has with the dad. The next day, you promised me Rachel, and you gave me Leah. And he's like, well, she's the firstborn. She has now worked 7 more years. You can marry her too. Doesn't that sound like a happy family? Go ahead and marry both the sisters, and it'll be a wonderful family making there. And he does it, and then he marries Rachel. Now, Rachel and Leah are competitive, and they start a race to see who could have the most children to make their husband happy. They want to be the favorite wife, and the way they be the favorite wife in their culture is to have the most children. And so Leah, she starts off right at the bat and has 4 children, Reuben and Simeon and Levi and Judah. And at that point, Rachel's looking at her going, getting a little jealous, going, wait a minute, this isn't working. So she pulls one of the old family ancestry tricks out of her hat and says, hey, we have this servant Bilhah. Husband, why don't you go sleep with her, and why don't you go and let's have children that way. And so now you have Bilhah in the mix, and she has 2 children, Dan and Naphtali. Leah sees what Rachel's doing, and she's like, oh, no. So she gets her servant involved, Zilpah, and Zilpah has 2 children, Gad and Asher. Leah, not to be outdone, still says, well, I think I got more in me. So she has 2 more children, Issachar and Zebulun. And then Rachel, and this is a long time. I mean, we're just flipping through this, but we're talking years, right? This you don't, if you've taken the classes, it takes a little time to have a child, right? It's not like tomorrow. And so finally, Rachel has 2 children of her own, Joseph and Benjamin. And this is the group that will become the 12 tribes of Israel. So this is why it was important to kind of go through this once in a while. Those are the 12. You hear about the 12 every time in Scripture. From here on out, you hear about the 12 tribes. It's them. It's those kids that grew up to have children of their own, and they get their own dysfunction going. And they start having kids all over the place, and those become the tribes. Who we're going to focus on today is Joseph. Right. So Joseph is the guy there, the son who really sets up the family to become a powerful nation. He's the one that helps them become everything they would ultimately become. But it's not without some hardship in his life. I mean, it's not just because he's inspirational and he says, come on, team, we can do this. There's some hardship he has to go through. First of all, look at how dysfunctional his family is. I mean, we're assuming a lot of dysfunction here, but I don't think it's a very big stretch to figure this out. This is his immediate family, because this is brothers and sisters. This is who he grows up with. There's 1 dad, there's 4 moms, 2 wives, which also happen to be sisters. So his aunt Leah is also mom Leah. I mean, so that's going on. And then there's the 2 wife-appointed mistresses. And he's got 10 half-brothers, and he's got 1 blood brother, Benjamin, and at least 1 half-sister that's mentioned, and who knows how many are scattered throughout there. They really mention the sons because those are who the 12 tribes are, and that's who the story continues as you read through the Bible. That's why they're mentioned in this way. Now, as you read through the story as recorded in Genesis, the early years of Joseph was filled with intense family arguing and jealousy and anger and fighting as each brother was trying to gain the upper hand from the other. I mean, think about this. Up to this point, this original promise that was given to Abraham, it didn't pass through every child in the family, right? Ishmael was not part of the promise. Isaac was. They have children. Esau was not part of the promise. The promise was not spread to him. It was his brother Jacob who got to do the promise. So I'm sure in the back of these minds, so far, all they know is we're going to become a nation, we're going to become great, we're going to bless the world through us, and God is picking 1 child from each generation to carry it forward. So they don't know the story like we do. We look back and go, oh, I get this. But they're like going, okay, only one of us gets to be the one. I want to be the one. I mean, don't you want to be the one who blesses the whole world? Don't you want to be the one who everybody's going to know their name and everybody's going to say great things about you and everything? To complicate things, so they're competing to be the one, right? They're dysfunctional. They're all fighting each other, and it probably leads to all kinds of arguments about this, right? To complicate things, Joseph is obviously Dad's favorite child. I mean, he just makes it very clear. He gives him the special coat of many colors. He gives him the accolades. He does all the special gifts and the wonderful things. Jacob absolutely adores Joseph, and everybody knows it. And then Joseph starts having these dreams, where basically saying, yeah, brothers, you're all going to bow down to me someday. This is going to be great. I love my dreams. This is a great dream. And then more than one. And the brothers are going, what? I mean, hey, we want you to bow down to us. I mean, it's causing all kinds of conflict in the home. More jealousy, more anger, and all kinds of mistreatment. The Bible gives a very sad commentary on the family life of Joseph in Genesis 37. When it says, "But when his brothers saw that their father loved him," Joseph, "more than his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peacefully to him. Now Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more." That's his family. I hate you. Now, I was one of three brothers. I had two brothers. There were times I probably said, "I hate you," but I didn't mean it like they meant it. Right? There were times I might have been angry or mad, or we might have had scuffles, maybe fist fights. We're boys. We did the boy thing, and we'd wrestle and chase each other and get mad at each other. But usually it would, end up with a 5-minute fist fight, or 3-minute, 2-minute, and then we'd all get up and get better. Okay, now we love you. We're hugging each other. We're best friends ever. That's just kind of how boys are. This was deeper than that. This was, no, we really hate you. I really don't want you in our family. I really wish you were dead. Joseph's brothers acted out on these thoughts by doing one of the most inhumane things you could possibly do. It's in Genesis chapter 37. Dad sends Joseph off to check on the boys, and it doesn't end well for Joseph. Joseph went after his brothers and found them at Dothan. They saw him from afar, and before he came near to them, they conspired against him to kill him. Okay. So it wasn't a spontaneous, "I'm really mad, whoops, that went wrong." It was, "Hey, here he comes, let's take him out," right? They said to one another, verse 19, "Here comes this dreamer. Come now, let's kill him, throw him into one of the pits, and then we'll say that a fierce animal has devoured him, and we'll see what will become of this dreamer." It is totally conspired. We're going to kill him, we've got a story, we're going to make this stuff up, and that's what they're talking about as he comes up to greet him. Now, Reuben somehow talks them out of killing him and convinces them, let's just beat him up and throw him in a cistern. He's thinking he'll come back later and save him. He doesn't like Joseph, but he doesn't want to kill him. That's kind of extreme, right? So he's at least trying to rescue him a little bit here. So they throw him in the cistern and they sit down to eat, and probably the food that Joseph brought for them to eat. And then things go from bad to worse. Genesis 37:26, Judah said to his brothers, "What profits is it if we kill our brother and conceal his blood?" Hey, we have nothing to gain by just killing him. Let's make some money off this, right? Basically, what profit is it if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites. Let not our hand be upon him, for he's our brother. Come on, we can't kill our own brother. Yeah, we can sell him. Right? He's our own flesh. His brothers listened to him. Then the Midianite traders passed by, and they drew Joseph up, lifted him out of the pit, and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. They took Joseph to Egypt. Who's the Ishmaelites? Sons of the other. They're related, but foes. But by the way, they're still foes. Every headline you read from the Middle East, all the wars, all the hatred, all the bombings, that's them. It's the same clans. Right? It's not changed. It goes back to Abraham, these battles. So we're not going to have a summit and suddenly, fix everything. It sounds great, but this stuff runs deep, this hatred. So the brothers, they kill a goat. They soak Joseph's blood in the coat in the blood. They tell Dad Joseph was killed by a wild animal. Joseph ends up in Egypt, which is the world power at that time, big, powerful country that he's in. And here is where I think the rest of Joseph's story is so powerful for us. As most of us are probably not totally relating to the story. Maybe in pieces and parts, but not to the extreme measures that Joseph's story is his. We don't have time to read the whole story here. It's Genesis chapters 39 through 50, and that would take we'd take the rest of the day just reading. Not the day, but the time here just reading it. So we're not going to do that. You might want to jump home and read it just because it's a fascinating read. There's a lot of details we're just brushing over today. But Joseph is in Egypt. He's sold to a very powerful man in Egypt. He's the captain of the guard. He entrusts Joseph to his home, to everything. And Joseph's doing a great job. He's also hanging out with this man's wife quite a bit, who happens to be very attracted to Joseph. She goes after him, makes it very clear that she wants to be intimate with him. And he's he has moral reasons, no, we can't do that. You just don't, that's not how it works with God. And she keeps going after it, and he keeps saying no. And finally, it's one of those moments where he just runs out of the house, and because she has a hold of his clothes, his coat, and he just leaves his coat behind, so she's sitting there holding his coat, and she screams for the guards and tells them that he was trying to assault her, which ends up putting Joseph in jail for a crime that he did not commit. While he's there, he meets a couple guys who worked for the Pharaoh. Both have these dreams, and God has given him this ability to interpret dreams. So Joseph interprets them accurately, and he says, hey, one of you guys are going to go back to work, and it's going to be a really great story for you. Don't forget me. Remember me when you go back working with the Pharaoh, and you're hanging out with Pharaoh. Tell him about me. It'd be really great. But the guy forgets. He's forgotten in jail. And several years later, Pharaoh has this weird catch this several years later, while Joseph is still in jail for something he didn't do. Pharaoh has this weird dream, and one of the guys says, nobody can interpret it, all of his people, Pharaoh's people, the spiritual guys, nobody can figure it out. And suddenly the guy goes, oh, wait, there's this guy I met when I was in jail that can interpret dreams. And they bring Joseph to the Pharaoh, and he tells him, well, yeah, that's really easy. There's going to be 7 years of abundance in crops, followed by 7 years of drought. You better find someone who can help manage the situation, so you're going to come out on top of this thing, because God's given you a gift by telling you what the next 14 years are all about. And Pharaoh basically says, that's a great idea. How about you? How about you, Joseph? And he makes him the second highest ranking official in the land, virtually making him the second highest official on the planet. He just was in a jail cell prior to this. The times of plenty come and go. The harvest is bountiful. Joseph knows what to do. He stores them, and he stores the food, and everything's great. The drought comes, and the world is faced with hunger and starvation, but Egypt is safe. Thousands of lives are saved because Joseph had them store food, and now people are starting to come from the outside and coming in to buy grain for them, so they're also making all kinds of money on this. Back home, Joseph's family is struggling. They're hungry. They hear Egypt has food. Dad sends the boys to Egypt to get food, and in doing so, they happen to meet the second highest ranking authority man on the planet, and in reverence, they bow down before him, oddly like the dream that Joseph had so many years earlier. And so here you have Joseph, the second most powerful man in the world, who's no doubt saved thousands of lives through this region. He is reunited with his family, and the nation of Israel will be born by him bringing them to Egypt. Now, before we look at that, finish the story and the details of this, there's just some really important lessons just from the story of Joseph that we have to talk about. It's just important, I think, for us to get. The first thing is that God can bless you no matter what your family looks like. Man, I think we need to hear that. We have this perfect picture of what a family is supposed to be, and we hey, I teach it too. That's what we strive for. Your family might not be that perfect picture. I mean, it just might not. It doesn't mean God has anything against you. God loves your family. It might be full of many moms and many dads and step brothers and half sisters and whatever the thing that Joseph grew up in. God loves your family. He just is. He loves you. You got to know that. Don't ever hold that against yourself. Don't ever say, "Oh no, I don't have an advantage that other people have. I'm in a bad situation." No. God absolutely loves you. He loves your family. He can use you to do a lot of good in a messed up world. He can help you to help so many people. Never use your family as an excuse to not do something for God. Never use your family as an excuse to not achieve your goals or not to chase after the goals that God has given you, the dreams like Joseph had that maybe he has given to you. Never use your family as an excuse to not be able to do positive things in life. I hear that sometimes from people, and it's just important that we get that. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. God uses you. He uses you. A second thing, God can take extreme pain and make it beautiful. Everybody in this room, we've all felt pain, right? I mean, you can't get out of kindergarten without feeling some pain. I mean, it's kindergarten level pain, but you don't know that. It's real. Right? And as you get older, it gets more complex and more painful and deeper. And look at the stuff Joseph went through. It went from fighting and arguing to thrown in a pit to sell him into slavery to now you're in jail. I mean, he went through pain, right? He understood pain. And God can make an extremely painful situation into something extremely beautiful. I can't imagine Joseph's jail time that lasted years. Jail. The mental anguish and torture he had to go through every single day, year after year after year, having nothing to think about but how his family treated him growing up. How this woman who accused him falsely treated him, and how he was falsely in jail. He had no reason to be in jail. He had no reason to be a slave. I mean, he had no reason, any of this stuff to happen to him. He was just a guy, right? I can't imagine this dark, emotional pit that he spent so many years in. I can't even go there and figure that out. I don't know how you survive emotionally and just in a healthy way being forgotten at his level he was forgotten, betrayed at the level he was betrayed, abused, trampled on by powerful people, hated by your family. I have to believe it was Joseph's faith in God that brought him through those years of anguish. I mean, there was a supernatural thing at work there. It wasn't just him being a strong guy. It wasn't just, wow, Joseph's tough. Be tough like Joseph. It was more than that. There was a God element in here. When there was no hope, when there was no future, when there was honestly no reason for him to live, Joseph somehow was able to gut his way through the pain and was ready when God called him out of the dungeon. Hey, go talk to Pharaoh. He was ready. However many years he was in there, he wasn't like, oh, give me a couple days, I got to get myself together. It's like, no, he was ready when they put him before Pharaoh. Imagine what was going through his mind, considering what he'd just been through the last several years, not the last day or the last week. Imagine what's going through his mind when he's standing before Pharaoh, the most important person on the planet, most powerful human being alive. And he heard these words recorded in Genesis 41, starting at verse 39. This is after he's interpreted the dream. He says, since God has shown you all this, and Joseph's like, you got to find someone, to manage this. Since God has shown you all this, there is none so discerning and wise as you are. This is coming from the most powerful man on the planet. There's no one as wise as you are. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall order themselves as you command. Well, you're the boss now. Only as regards to the throne will I be greater than you. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, see, I have set you over all the land of Egypt. And then Pharaoh took a signet ring from his hand, put it on Joseph's hand, clothed him in garments of fine linen, put a gold chain about his neck. That is significant. The signet ring is like, that is a full authority of the king, the Pharaoh. You do the soft wax, embed the ring thing. That is a decree from Pharaoh himself. He goes, you have my voice. You are it. All right? And he made him ride in the second chariot, Air Force 2, and they called out before him, bow the knee. Thus he set him over all the land of Egypt. So everywhere he goes, there's people shouting out, bow the knee, here comes Joseph. And he's in the chariot, and everyone in the nation except Pharaoh will bow before him. That's crazy. Now, I don't think the point of this story is that if you go through hard times and you gut it out and you stay strong and you just put a smile on your face, that God's going to make you second in command of all the earth. I don't think that's the story here. Or that he's going to give you great success and wealth and everything's going to turn out great. I don't know. That's really the lesson here. I think the point of the story is that when we go through times of extreme pain, even if your view of life right now is from the dungeon, even if right now you're still processing what in the world's going on in your world, his promise is he'll be there with you. God was with him. He wasn't alone in that dungeon. God was with him every day, every hour, year after year, year after year. Somehow Joseph figured that out. He didn't have a Bible to pick up and read like you and I do, but he somehow God allowed him to understand. He was with him. And he promises that good will ultimately come from pain. That's just a promise. I think we can take that out of this story. And he does promise that you will grow as a person. And I know that that's hard to hear, especially when you're in it, but you do, and you know that because you've been through pain before and you've grown through pain before. He may not take away the pain right away. How many years was he in prison? How many things did he go through? How many times did his brothers punch him and it wasn't like he had a soft landing in the bottom of the cistern when they threw him in there to die. I mean, God put pillows down there and cotton. No, he landed on rock. It was a rough time. Those words, every word his brothers said to him, hurt and stayed with him. So God doesn't necessarily take away the pain, but he promises it'll lead to something beautiful. And that's where the faith comes in. That's where the faith comes in. Don't ever give up in God. Don't ever give up on God. He's in the middle of what you go through. Now, I want to end with what I think is mind-blowingly huge for us. That God can take the biggest betrayal and make it the most amazing story of forgiveness. This blows me away in the Joseph story. Here he is, second most powerful man on the earth. The army's at his command. I mean, if he wants a building built, he says, put a building over there, it happens. That's just who he is. And here's his brothers who betrayed him so many years earlier, bowing before him, looking for food. They don't even know it's him. He's not on the radar. They assume he's dead, long gone by now. You have to know the scenes that flashed through his head, through his mind, when he saw his brothers. Have you ever done that? You see someone who's hurt you in some way or betrayed you or harmed you, and you see them and immediately you start thinking, the words come to mind, conversations come to mind, a scene comes up, the video is replayed in your mind. He had to have all of that going through his mind at that moment. How many times they beat him, how many times they laughed at him, the names they called him, the things they did to him, the looks on their self-righteous faces as they took their little petty amounts of cash and sold him into slavery, assuming he would die. All of that had to be replaying at his mind. And he's human. He was thinking that when he sees his brother, and all this flood of memory comes back to him. And he starts processing through the options he has. What will I do in response? My brothers are bowing before me. They've done these terrible things. They're all as fresh and raw and real in my heart right now as they were the day it happened. I had years in prison to think about it and relive it. Here I am. I can do anything I want. I can wave my finger. If I do it the right way, the guards will take them down. They'll never stand up again. They're already bowing. I might as well take them out here. Why not? That had to go through his mind. Could just put him in prison. I was in prison for several years. Let's just match that. Maybe we'll double it. That had to go through. Maybe it's just me. That would go through my mind. As you process things quickly, and you're in that moment, I could slowly torture and dismember every one of my brothers one piece at a time and just enjoy the screams that I would hear. That might go through their mind. That might tell you a little bit more about me than him. Whatever he's thinking, he doesn't do any of it. He doesn't do any of it. With all the authority and power at his disposal, with the ability to literally do anything he wanted for revenge, that no doubt in his mind some point he daydreamed doing. He looked at his brothers, who deserved every single thing they would get, and he chose to give them exactly what they did not deserve: forgiveness. This is crazy. Genesis 45, verse 4. So Joseph said to his brothers, "Come near me, please." And they came near, and he said, "I'm your brother, Joseph, You know, the guy you sold into slavery, into Egypt. And now, do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. The famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there are yet 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvest. It's going to get worse, he says. And God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, to keep alive for you many survivors. So it was not you who sent me here, it was God. He's made me a father to Pharaoh and lord of all his house and rule over all the land of Egypt. We don't know voice inflection. I don't know how he said that. But do you read even a hint of bitterness in there? Do you read even a hint of anger or regret or self-pity or woe is me or anything like that? There is no, do you remember what you did to me? Let me remind you of the last time we saw each other. Can I just remind you how terrible you guys are as a family? He didn't say that. There's no brace yourself. All the things I've imagined doing the last several years are about to happen. He didn't say that. He just basically said, look how far God will go to save lives. Isn't God awesome? What are you guys worried about? Get up, get up. You're my brothers. Man, that's humbling to me. I don't know. It's easy to put ourselves, I'd be the Joseph, so I don't know. I really don't know. I am who I am. We are who we are, all of us. We are who we are because of the sum total of all the good things and the bad things that have happened to us in life ever. You have experiences, you have moments, there's betrayal, there's trust, there's really great things that happen in promotions, whatever. All the good and all the bad things are thrown in one pile, and that's who we become. That's who we are. That's why I think the way I think today. That's why you think and act the way you act and think today. It's all because of our experiences. And it would be so easy to remain angry at people who hurt me over the years. It wouldn't take me long to sit down. If I wanted to make a list of all the terrible things people have said to me, or awful things that happened to me, or ways I was been betrayed, or ways people were hateful toward me, I could make a list, and I could just sit and look at that every day and dwell on it and just think, this life is terrible. And I could become a very embittered person. But I would rather turn that around and learn to somehow be thankful for the person I have become as I struggled through each disappointment, as I struggled through each painful thing and positive thing, and how God has chiseled me into the person that I am through my experiences. Now, I don't think the lesson here isn't just saying, hey, Joseph forgave, go out and forgive someone. Now, force yourself to forgive. It doesn't really work that way, does it? No, just go forgive. What's wrong with you? I don't think that's the thing. I believe Joseph had supernatural power to help him forgive at that level. This is not just a Joseph's a really cool guy thing. There's some God going on in here. And if that's the case, the best part of this story is that the same God who had the supernatural power that helped Joseph overcome these struggles in life and love his brothers is the same God who's here today. He's the same God we sung about this morning and are going to sing about again. It's the same God we worship, the same God who is your God. Which means he can also get you, if he could help Joseph, he can get you to the point where you can say, what you meant for harm for me, God really meant for good. He's been in the story the whole time. He never left the story. God didn't betray me. You may have, but if God was using it, he made me who I am, and now look at the people who are being helped. Now look at how God is being served in a way that I couldn't have served before. He put me through the fire to refine me and to make me who I am. So here's what I want to do. I want to end this morning by not just giving you a command to go out and forgive someone, but to offer you a few moments to invite God into that story and help you to forgive like Joseph did. It was a supernatural moment in his life. There was God speaking through him right there in his heart. It absolutely was. I can't give you 3 easy steps. I can't tell you that you just need to smile bigger and make it go, it's going to be great. But I can tell you there's a Holy Spirit of God that lives in us that can help us get to the point where we can look at someone who has hurt us in the past and say, I'm thankful that God has made me who I am today. I'm going to give you a few moments to just pray. We all have different people in our mind right now, different images, different videos have probably already played in your mind, or audio clips, whatever, memories. And just take some moment, if you would, and go to this God that we serve, the same God Joseph served, and just ask him for the Holy Spirit ability to forgive as Joseph did. To whatever is missing in your life that's keeping you from doing that he can come in and push that out and keep working in you the way he has been. He is doing something in your life. He's doing something. But let's take an opportunity. We're going to pray. I'm going to give you a moment to pray quietly, silently. We're going to sing a song. If you need more time, the prayer room is open, and the garage still stuff that wasn't there is clean. It's ready to go. You can spend some time in there, but just moving forward, don't just try to force yourself. Make this an issue of prayer.